In the shadowy corridors of post-Soviet Russia, a quiet man with icy eyes and a past steeped in secrecy rose through the ranks, unnoticed by many, underestimated by all. Today, he stands as one of the most powerful and polarizing leaders of the 21st century. But how did a former KGB agent, virtually unknown even to his own country, ascend to the presidency of the largest nation on earth? This is not just a tale of political ambition. It's a story of manipulation, loyalty, strategy, and survival. This is Putin's rise to power, the untold story. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on October 7, 1952, in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg. His family lived in a communal apartment, sharing a cramped space with two other families. His father was a factory worker and former soldier. His mother, a factory laborer. Russia was still recovering from World War II. Leningrad had endured one of the most horrific sieges in human history. Putin's early life was marked by scarcity, discipline, and an unrelenting environment of survival. As a child, he was quiet, often described as intense. But young Putin had a streak of defiance. He practiced judo and sambo not just for sport but as a method of control, a focus, and perhaps something deeper, dominance. He was no academic prodigy, but Putin was ambitious. He wanted to be something more, something greater. By the time Putin was a teenager, he already knew what he wanted: to join the KGB. The notorious Soviet intelligence agency was not just a job, it was a calling. To be in the KGB was to be part of the elite, the guardians of the state. Putin enrolled at Leningrad State University, studying law. It was there that he was quietly recruited by the KGB. In 1985, Putin was stationed in East Germany. He worked in Dresden under deep cover, gathering intelligence, monitoring dissidents, and operating in the murky world of Cold War espionage. But then everything changed. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, chaos erupted. Protesters stormed the KGB office. Putin famously called Soviet command for backup. No one answered. He was left to his own devices. It was a moment that would define his worldview. Never show weakness. Always be prepared. Power protects. When Putin returned to Leningrad in 1990, the Soviet Union was crumbling. The nation was gripped by economic collapse, political chaos, and rising crime. The Red Empire was gone. What remained was confusion and fear. Putin left the KGB, but not its mindset. He became an advisor to Anatoly Sobchak, the reformist mayor of Leningrad. Here, Putin learned the ropes of political power, dealing with business tycoons, managing foreign trade, and navigating the criminal underworld that was emerging in Russia. He was discreet, loyal, and efficient, traits that made him valuable but also kept him in the background. Unlike the flamboyant oligarchs and loud politicians, Putin was invisible, but not to everyone. In 1996, Sobchak lost his re-election. Putin, now without a job, was summoned to Moscow. It was a turning point. He began working in the Kremlin's administrative offices. Each role was more powerful than the last. He became known as a fixer, a man who got things done. President Boris Yeltsin, an aging, unpredictable leader, was surrounded by a circle of advisors desperately seeking a loyal successor, someone who wouldn't turn on them, someone they could trust not to prosecute them once Yeltsin stepped down. In 1998, Putin was made head of the FSB, the successor to the KGB. He began to quietly reshape the agency, firing hundreds of officers loyal to rival factions. Behind his cold exterior, a storm was brewing. In 1999, Yeltsin shocked the world. He named Vladimir Putin as Prime Minister of Russia. At the time, Putin was virtually unknown to the public. Polls showed he had less than 2% national support. But things were about to change dramatically. In September 1999, a series of apartment bombings rocked Russia, killing hundreds. The government blamed Chechen terrorists. Putin, as Prime Minister, responded with brutal military force, launching the Second Chechen War. His approval ratings skyrocketed. Russians were desperate for strength, for order, for vengeance, but controversy still lingers. Some former FSB agents, like Alexander Litvinenko, later alleged that the bombings were orchestrated by the Russian security services themselves to justify war and elevate Putin. The truth remains murky, but the effect was undeniable. Putin became a national hero almost overnight. On December 31, 1999, New Year's Eve, Yeltsin resigned, naming Putin as acting president. The world was stunned. Putin's first move? Granting Yeltsin full immunity from prosecution. Just 3 months later, Putin won the presidential election with over 50% of the vote. He was no longer the shadowy fixer. He was now the face of Russia. As president, Putin began consolidating power quickly. He brought the oligarchs to heel, forcing them to either submit or flee. He reasserted control over the media, especially the powerful TV networks. Critics were silenced, allies were rewarded, and through it all, Putin cultivated an image. A judo black belt, a horseback rider, a rugged outdoorsman. He wasn't just a president, he was a man of action. But behind the strongman persona, a darker pattern emerged. Journalists investigating corruption and abuse like Anna Politkovskaya were murdered. Former spies who defected, like Alexander Litvinenko, were poisoned abroad. Opposition leaders faced legal harassment, imprisonment, or worse. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, once Russia's richest man, was jailed for challenging Putin. Was it political strategy, personal vendetta, or simply a message? In Putin's Russia, loyalty meant survival. Dissent meant danger. As the years passed, Putin's grip tightened. He rewrote the rules, extended presidential terms, and restructured the government to centralize power. Despite Western criticism, he remained immensely popular in Russia. To many, he restored national pride, economic stability, and global influence. But it came at a cost. Freedom of press, independent institutions, political plurality. His presidency became not just a role, but a symbol of Russian resurgence. So who is Vladimir Putin? A patriot? A tyrant? A strategist? A survivor? Perhaps all of them. His rise was not accidental. It was calculated, opportunistic, and relentless, built not just on ambition, but on an understanding of fear, power, and loyalty. He emerged from the ruins of a fallen empire and built something new, whether you call it a revival or a reign. The story of Putin's rise is not just about one man. It's about the forces that shape nations, the fragility of democracy, and the enduring allure of strong leadership in uncertain times. The world may debate his legacy for generations, but one thing is clear: Vladimir Putin didn't just come to power. He took it, and he never let go. This was Putin's rise to power, the untold story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history, power, and the people who shape our world.